Welcome and thank you for joining me here at Entrée Capital's Founder Spotlight series, where we highlight some of the inspiring founders in our portfolio and invite them to share some of the lessons that they've learned along the way. Are you ready to get started?
Thanks for having me. I'm ready to go.
Amazing. So let's first start a little bit about you. We'll start with asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump in afterwards to about Bookaway. But if you can introduce yourself a little bit here.
Okay, so I'm Noam. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Bookaway. Bookaway is a ground transportation booking company. Basically, we let travelers book buses, ferries, trains, private cars with a driver from point A to point B, everything you need to actually get around a foreign country or travel within your own country. We don't do transportation within the city. We don't compete with Uber or Lyft or things like that. We just help customers book these long distance services that are relatively difficult to book in advance in most of the world today.
And how did you get into that? Well, you're the founder and co-founder. So tell me a little bit about that journey of even starting this.
Yeah, so I've been doing sort of startups since I graduated from college, basically, and I've had a couple of companies that opened and closed. Some were more successful, some were less successful. And this company actually started when I was traveling in the Philippines during my honeymoon, and I was trying to get a ticket to a very famous tourist destination, a bus ticket, and it was basically impossible to book that online. You had to go take a taxi to the bus station, buy the ticket, then take a taxi back to the hotel, come back the next day. And this is Manila, right? And every taxi is 2 hours in each direction because it's crazy traffic. So, and you just waste a day trying to buy a bus ticket. And when I came back to Israel, I kind of thought that this is like crazy and maybe there's something I can do about it. And I ended up building a very simple website, like a Wix website that let people pay me through PayPal or something and for a bus ticket. And I had a Filipino travel agent go to the bus station every day and buy the tickets. I just send a picture of them and the bus company would accept that. And that thing really worked. And I saw that it sold. It simply sold. People needed it. They looked online in Google, they found it, and they bought. And I said, and then I expanded it, and I said, let's try it in a different place in the Philippines because there's a lot of buses there, and that worked as well. And then I tried it in a different country, and I said, let's see, if it works in Vietnam or Thailand or something like that, and it did. At that point, it's kind of clear to me that this is a real need in the market that is not served today, that it's one of the last kind of verticals in travel that are not digitized yet, and it's kind of still hard to book them online. And that's when I started Bookaway, basically.
And throughout all of those changes between the different countries and you expanding, was it still that same model of someone buying it online and then you having someone on the ground there actually going? And is that how it still works today?
No, so the reason, this is really the gap in the market, right? So the reason that it's hard to book it today is because it's not digitized, right? It's not like the hotels that, if you remember 20 years ago, you used to travel and just go into a city if you're backpacking and go into reach a certain city and just walk around and ask different hotels, do they have room for you? And that was seemed completely reasonable. Now it's inconceivable because everything is online and digitized, and every hotel is working with a online system that is connected, that connects their inventory to booking and whatever. That doesn't exist in transportation yet today. Like most of the market, some companies do have online availabilities, but most of the market works with systems that are completely disconnected from anything else or manual. And part of the work that we are doing is taking all these companies and bringing them online in various ways, whether by actually giving them a system to manage their entire kind of business and take it online, connecting to very fragmented offline systems that they use. We do a lot of work to automate this process and bringing it towards sort of the 21st century. But yes, still in some places we still do it manually. It's still part of the market, and that's the opportunity for us.
Would you say then that you're both B2C in the space that your platform is used by individual customers to buy the tickets, as well as B2B, as in your platform is being implemented in the actual bus stations? And how do you approach, I would say, those kind of different angles, like if you consider yourself both B2B and B2C, how do you approach those differently? Do you approach them differently? And tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so we're a marketplace. So by definition, we're a B2B and a B2C kind of company. So we have the B2B side of different transportation operators globally, and today we're connected to over 6,000 of those in the world in 110 countries. And we have the B2C side, which is the customer facing side, basically the online transportation agency, we call it, the parallel of Expedia or Booking or Kayak or whatever you like to use, but dedicated for ground and sea transportation. So it would have this very similar flow and user experience of looking at different offerings, looking at times, comparing, filtering things, and then buying online, paying online, receiving your voucher by email, but for a segment of the industry that until now was pretty difficult to book online. So that's the customer facing. The operator facing, is a system that we connect to these operators. We offer different online solutions, SaaS solutions also, by the way, to help them go online and kind of enable the digitization of this industry.
Okay. And getting to, where you are now, starting back from when you're actually traveling in the Philippines and doing it and figuring out the problem to having a up and running business, obviously couldn't have been easy. Could you tell me a little bit about some of the ups and downs? What was the most difficult part of building Bookaway to where it is now? And what were some of the things that you might have needed to change based on those difficulties?
I think for us, it's pretty obvious that the most difficult part was COVID, right? Because in the middle of really building the company and having an amazing momentum of like 200% year-over-year growth and expanding into different geographies and so on, suddenly the world just closed and travel went down. It didn't go down by 20, 30, 50%. It went down by 99%. So we went down from expecting sort of millions of sales a month to selling nothing, and we had to handle that crisis in different ways and see how we go out of it. And I'm happy to say that today we feel that we're on path to be completely out of the crisis. We actually managed to grow significantly during COVID, and we did that by actually acquiring some of our competitors during COVID, which is a different side story of how to sort of to manage this kind of crisis and how we did and why. But we managed to create a much bigger group that's now one of the biggest groups in ground transportation in the world. We now have sort of the leading inventory of ground operators anywhere, and we're very well positioned to grow exponentially once travel is fully functional, and I think it's happening very soon.
I actually do want to touch on that comment that you made about acquiring things, because when it comes to COVID or dealing with crises, I've spoken to a lot of founders that pivoted their product, or they shifted a little bit of their target audience, or if they moved. I haven't actually ever heard of anyone say we used it as an opportunity to acquire a competitor. So can you actually talk a little bit more about that? How did you come to that decision? How did you decide that was the right way to go? That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I think we were one of the first companies to actually realize that we're in a big problem with COVID. So because we were focused on Asia, by the way, in the first years. So Asia was our main market, and Asia was the first market that actually closed completely travel. So we were kind of 2 months ahead of everyone else in realizing that something needs to be done. And we had to prepare for it financially. It meant a lot of things for us. We had to let go of people and to make sure that we have enough runway to sort of hedge against what we thought at the moment is going to be a 6 months to 9 months event. And we did that, and after almost 6-9 months that COVID was, we were in COVID, it was obvious that COVID is not going to end in 2020, right? That was 2020, and it was obvious that COVID is going to take 2-3 years, maybe more. And at that point we had to make a decision. Do we wait it out and just say we can go hibernate? A lot of companies did that and said, we have the money, let's put it aside. When things open up, we'll go back to working. Do we pivot and say, okay, we got this technology, what else can we do with it? Or we do something different? And what we decided to do is we thought about it, and we looked around and we said, if it's raining, then everybody is getting wet. And if we are on zero or whatever it was at that point, it was near zero because no one was traveling back then that competitor is at the same situation, that competitor is the same situation, and that competitor is in the same situation. And we always knew that we wanted to build a global company that would take over, that vertical in the market. And we kind of asked ourselves, what if we just buy these guys or merge with them or whatever? Then when COVID ends, we're the biggest company, and that's it, and like game over for everyone. And that was started as kind of a crazy idea, and luckily we have amazing investors backing us that kind of heard that idea and went along with it. Said, okay, do you think you can pull it off? I mean, it doesn't, it's not easy to buy a company. It's not easy to convince even a company to get sold. And we started to roll the idea and sort of opening discussions with competitors, with companies that, in general, we were sort of nemesis with, and starting to talk about it. And at some point, we got to a point when we felt very comfortable saying to investors, we can get these deals, like we can convince these guys to join us. We can do the M&As. And it happened.
That's incredible. That's a very good way to look at turning lemons into lemonades. That's really fantastic. Is there any other any advice that you've gotten along the way that either has put that bravery in your way of working? Because that's a pretty brave move to go and say we're at our lowest, let's go acquire more. Or any advice that you've used as a backbone to the way that you run your business?
I think that one of the most important things is contrarian thinking, like always thinking, at least practicing the opposite opinion of whatever everyone else is thinking, because at any given point, if you think about the different waves that you had in COVID, at any different point, if you talked to people in the industry, to investors, what you would get is whatever you see now, that's going to be like that. If we had like thousands and thousands of cases a day and everything was closed, people would tell you the world's going to be closed for free for 4 or 5 years. And then if you had a relatively open kind of month or 2 months, then people say this is over, it's done, forget about COVID, it's out of it. And you have to think always like not what everyone is saying, but what you think, and what if everyone else is wrong. And that, when everyone said this is going to take years, we said maybe yes, maybe no, but it's definitely going to end. And when it ends, then there's going to be travel. And when people said it's over, we stopped and we said, is it really over? So like, is there a chance that we're still going to see another wave and another closing and same situation as it is today? Technically, we're preparing for COVID to take two more years at least, even though it looks like it's over. And I think I'm very optimistic, but financially, we know that there is a chance there's going to be another, pie variant or whatever. So we kind of try to think very opposite of what, the majority of the people think. I think that's one thing. The other thing is, I think go big or go home. I think, who said that? It was Churchill or something, that don't let a good crisis go to waste. That's a good advice. But in the end, if you're building and you want to build a $10 billion company, do bold moves.
What you started this, from an idea that you got when you were traveling. You said during your honeymoon. What is advice that you would give, not in kind of the growth stages, but to a founder that has an idea? They're right there in the beginning. They have an idea. Either they have a solution to a problem, or they've got a problem they want to solve and they want to find the solution. What's advice that you would say from the onset to a pre-seed founder?
Find someone that is willing to pay you for whatever it is you think you're building, and take his money first. But that's the different way of saying do an MVP, okay? But start small, get it working. But the bottom line, I think that the best kind of proof of concept, the ultimate kind of product market fit or whatever, is having someone saying, take my money and shut up. And if you can do it, take my money, I don't care. And I think that was kind of the thing that I realized with and I had a couple of companies earlier that, either worked to some level, either were good companies or obviously didn't work. But when I started this, small travel sites that started selling these tickets, it was obvious that it works. People just, emailed me, okay, I want the ticket, how do I pay you? and that's when it happens, it's working.
You had mentioned earlier that, one of the reasons you were able to acquire those companies that you had investors that believed in you. Can you touch a little bit about the investor founder relationship, a little bit about why Entrée, and kind of go into that?
So I think Entrée is one of the companies that believed in this this roll-up move that we did. So Entrée joined to fund one of the VCs that funded these acquisitions. And if you want to talk about I think the important thing about investors is working with people that you feel comfortable with and that are helping you, right? That are there to sort of kickstart your business, or if at some point they're going to push it forward. And I think that's the kind of investors that we have, the investors that looked at the situation, and instead of saying, okay, this company, we're going to write it off, that's it, COVID, travel, then okay, let's see, we still believe in it, the idea works, let's see how we can get it up and running and through this crisis.
That's amazing. Just to close us off, do you have any books, podcasts, or movies suggestions that you were inspired by throughout your founder journey?
So I think in terms of books, that's a cliche, but everybody says it. I think that The Hard Thing About the Hard Things is a really good book for the stages of a company that's sort of moving from a very early stage to actually building a company. In terms of blogs, I really like the NFX blog, and I'm sorry, but but they have really in-depth and detailed content and very helpful for companies like me that do marketplaces, which is what they focus on. Yeah, I think that's in general sort of the two good recommendations I can say.
I think that they're great. Any last words that you want to give to our audience before we end this?
Why is it my last words? So,
last will and testament before I click the end.
Yeah, so I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this. I think this was an interesting conversation, and yeah, I think look forward to touching base on this again.
Great, thanks.